So here we are recording now. Just a couple of things. I'm going to kind of walk through some things that we're going to walk through first. And your papers are excellent. I started marking them up and I thought that's not helpful. I wanted to talk it through. And so we'll spend most of our time talking it through. Let me give some examples. The first thing I want to do is just share the screen. If somebody is looking for where the recordings were from these previous Zoom meetings, they're going to be under the syllabus tab, and they're going to be under the links. So you have those other links we have here. You have other company sessions. So you have just the different links that go to YouTube, and they're just by date. So if you want to get that or go back over them, you'll find them there. And they go to YouTube. So under the syllabus tab in the course, and go there. So let's see. Next thing is, I wanted just to show you some examples, and then we're going to get into yours of some people that have done this well. One of my favorites, let me show you first of all, what we're trying to do is you're going to have a working paper. And in your final paper that you turn into me, all you'll do is the first 3 questions. I mean, you can put the whole strategies in there if you want to, but that's not required. It's just the working paper, which is usually about 5 pages. And all that is really the first 3 questions. What is God showing me? What is God telling me to do about it? What will happen if I do it? And then the strategy and the budget, which are, I guess, is 5 questions. So for the overall organization. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is have what Rob Martin calls a book of LOIs, which is a book of letter of inquiries. And the idea behind this is you always have your central working paper that creates the statement of need, vision, and your seriousness of outcome, and overall strategy for the whole organization. But you also have these different working papers that are based upon projects that are subsets inside of your organization. And that's your book of LOIs. So the opening is the working paper for the whole organization. And then you have projects that you would pull out, because that's how a lot of times individual funders, major donors, and foundation grant makers want to look at projects. One of the mistakes that is often made, though, is disconnecting a project from the main working paper. And so what ends up happening is there's kind of a sense of apology or hiding. That's the worst thing that people can do, of getting funded for a project and then hiding money that comes out of that project for overhead. You need overhead, you need administration. Most funders know that. And so by, to some degree, creating the context for why your organization itself, overhead and administration, is valuable and needed, as well as the project, then when you ask anywhere from 12, usually it's going to be 12 to 15%. Some people go as high as 20% in a grant request. People understand it. Well, of course, you've given me the working paper of your primary organization, you give me your project, and in your project budget, you say that 15% will go to the overhead. That makes sense. The project would not work unless the overhead was in place. And then sometimes in the project budget, you have a salary. Somebody's doing the project. So in some ways, it's not just the 15% to some degree undesignated overhead, but you also have a percentage inside of that project that's going to somebody's salary. It could be yours, somebody else's, and the expenses. So it's not just 15% that's going to overhead. It could be much higher. Up to 15% is general overhead. Inside the project itself would be higher percentages based upon the overhead needed, salaries and other things for that project. So, but the point of it is you're creating a working paper and a book of LOIs. And so just one example, I'm going to share this. This is from, let's see, I'll show all windows. Maybe I closed it. Here, no, keep going. Here's is from Africa. So, so this is in Africa, the Evangelical Association of Africa. This is their statement. And so if you notice, they chose in their working paper, and what's interesting about how they've used this is they've approached grants. They actually did a big dinner where they brought in a whole bunch of bishops and business people. And they've used this in written things. They've used this on banners in the room when they did the banquet. And the key is consistency. And they worked and worked and worked and worked on this paper so that they're consistent in the banners in the room, the website, the paper, the words they're using. So a symbol of evangelical unity in Africa. If you're familiar with what an evangelical alliance does, there's 143 national evangelical alliances in the world. There's 9 regions. There's then the African Evangelical Alliance of Africa is the one that oversees all of the evangelical alliances in Africa. So the difficulty they have is an evangelical alliance networks the churches and the members of their country. So they're kind of not on the front lines. This is a regional that networks the alliances. So it's now a network of networks, which is sometimes difficult to explain the value of it. And Mario, you have a little bit that of your problem is that the first thing you present is you network. I know how valuable that is. You know how valuable that is. Saves money, connects to people, creates unity, all of those things. But sometimes donors kind of go, what does a network do? Versus Bright, you're actually saying, I have educated 4,000 students in this many years. Networks are sometimes hard to explain. And so that's why notice they're trying to figure out how to explain it.
Okay.
So here they've got their statement. So this is our purpose. If you can see, I mean, obviously they're using the exact same format that you're using. What is God showing us? They chose to use bullets, which gets it through. What is God telling us to do about it? What will be different if they go? And these are talking points, written points. When they've done grant requests, they just keep going back to this. Now, sometimes they'll flesh these out a little bit more. Then you have their letters of inquiry. So one of the projects they're working on, but you notice they don't disconnect the overall working paper because they're always going to ask at least 15% for the headquarters. Then they talk about this particular project, empowering women by addressing gender-based violence in Sierra Leone, South Sudan, and Zimbabwe. And again, if you notice, they've introduced exactly the same format. What is the problem? What is God showing us? Okay. What is God telling us to do about it? Now they've used a little different words here, but it's the exact same format around this exact project. Okay. Well done. And notice that this is not a bad way to do this. I like to use footnotes as well, because it allows me to make statements, but back it up without losing the flow of the presentation. And so that sometimes is helpful. Project impact. So what will happen if we do this? So what is God showing me? So up here, this is what is God showing me? What is God telling me to do about it? They just use different terms. What would happen if I did it? And here is the budget that she's put together. And interesting, she's done strategy and cost kind of in a table. We call this Lillian's table format. And you can see very clear, these are tactics. And this is the budget. Now, she didn't go into a lot of strategy. Sometimes you would need to put in a little bit more strategy because in her project components, she really did put the strategy up here. Again, the strategy is there, and then here's your budget connected to the specific tactics and events that she would do. And then the next letter of inquiry, okay? This is a healthcare for, again, and particularly in South Sudan. What is God telling me? What is God showing me? What is God telling me to do about it? Okay. And what would happen if I did it? And she's combined strategy with that. And then here's the budget. Okay. And again, connected to it. So this is kind of where you're heading. Again, here's another letter of inquiry, is that you would have your working paper with specific projects attached. Let me give you another example. That again, this is now the Evangelical Alliance of the Caribbean. And Mario, I think you're actually under the Evangelical Alliance of Latin America, not the Caribbean. I'm not sure which one they've, and you may you may have two sets of parents. I'm not sure. Again, and it's the ones from Latin America that'll be coming to to DR later. So the way the Caribbean decided to do it, here we go, is a little bit different. And so they're going to be talking about projects, and they have commissions. So they have the Secretariat is the headquarters. Then CONEM is evangelism and missions. CONCET is communication, commission and communication and IT. CONLED is leadership. CONRAD is relief development. That's the one that came in pretty strong after St. Vincent and the Grenadines had their volcano. And then women's affairs. So Dave, that's in an appendix, but going back to the top. And so basically they set the context. What is the Caribbean? Because recognizing that some people, when they're asking it, they're not going to know what the Caribbean is, believe it or not. Sometimes in the United States, not realizing that the Caribbean is considered actually Ghana, Guyana, and some other places, and even over here. And so make their statement, and they do a little bit what Mario does is they spend the time talking about the positive before they get into the negative. So the positive is it's a great thing, tourist, beautiful place, but it has some problems. Fractured identity, fragmented Christian voice and activities. And so this is the need. What is God showing us? Okay, what is God telling us to do about it? Notice they go directly back to state a fractured identity, a gospel-centered identity. That's the need. The need is a fragmented Christian voice and activities. The what is God telling us to do about it? The vision is unity, and then networking again. And so what are the outcomes? What would happen if we did this? And again, it's connected to the core needs. Project plans. Now, this is Revelino. And by the way, you have access to these people. We can set up meetings, and he's a good writer. So, so what he's done here is in his letter of inquiry, he said, what's the need? Notice how he quickly said, this many people have disasters or affected by disasters every year. What's the vision? So he's going back through, what is God telling me? What is God showing me? What is God telling me to do? What am I going to do? What's the outcomes? By putting it in a table format. And so it talks about the vision. The change that would happen, the transformation, is it wouldn't be people from North America and outside doing it. It would be their resources being distributed by local networks. What are the outcome? And so they're training people, getting them prepared for relief and development, and utilizing church distribution, not parachurch distributions, which are expensive and part-time, developed from the outside to create through networks and relationships to create a way to get care to them. The program, why us, okay, and states, the funding need they're looking for. And each of these, of course, goes into a bigger piece, but it allows for them. Here is Conrad, a peacemaking campaign in the midst of violence in the midst of elections. Another CON-led project coming up with leadership. And I'll give you access to these documents. I've gotten permission from them to do that. But just notice how they've done it. The logic is the logic that helps a donor. Okay, what's the need of this particular project? What are you going to do? What's going to happen differently? What would be the outcome? Why are we uniquely in a place to do that? Which is important for the Evangelical Alliance of the Caribbean. What's the budget there? And of course, in a project, they'll flow that out more. And then here's some supporting documents that are out there, kind of what, how that budget works together. And then he's chosen to put together an appendix or glossary of term because there's a lot of acronyms that is used in his document. So let me stop at that point. Those are two examples of what, once you have that working paper, how you would then line it up as a book of LOIs. Let me stop. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And we'll get those two examples to you. And you have access to Revelino. He'd love to meet you, as well as Lillian, who wrote the one in Africa. She's in Kenya.
Okay.
So then let me move to the chat room here. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Where is Lillian in Africa?
She is the head of finance for the African Evangelical Alliance. So do you remember Aya Forteray? now it's called, now the guy who's the head of it is the regional general secretary is Master, and I'm horrible with African last names, but they're the Evangelical Alliance of Africa. She's based in Kenya. They have,
Kenya.
seven-story office tower there. And there's her and Jim Olang are both people I'd love for you to meet sometime.
Okay.
Lillian Maranga and Jim Olang, wonderful people. Master is the regional general secretary, great guy, just good people. And so the event they did that was a banquet, a fundraising banquet. They had key bishops from around the world, connected even, EA Adeboye with the RCCG or RCCG. And because that's a lot of where they can, David Agande is on their board. These are kind of bigger bishop names in Africa, because, they were representing all the evangelicals in Africa. And then through them, they connect to business people and other potential funders. Kind of goes back to what we've been talking about for both of you is kind of once you find some wealthy people that get connected, enjoy what you're doing, they help introduce you to others. And so each of these people I mentioned are kind of overseeing areas, and then they are bringing in, because you need that help. And then these wealthy people become part of your donor orbit in the inside. They're relational. They may be on your board, like David Ogende is on the board of the EA Africa. And then they start talking to people, then having banquets, passing out your working papers and your LOIs. That's how you're building it. But what's important is they say, I want you to meet somebody and they're available for dinner tonight. You don't want to be scrambling. You have your working paper, you talk to them and they go, well, that's really interesting what you do. What are some of the ways you do it? Well, I've got the women's initiative, the youth initiative. They go, women, youth. Oh, that peace building. Tell me about that. It's like you reach in your back pocket. You don't really, well, you have it. And you pull out the letter of inquiry that connected to the interest that God had already preceded in them. But you never are behind. You have these working papers. You're confident. You know how to present it. You've presented it before. People have responded, need, vision, outcomes. You've vetted your budget. In that confidence, because you've stewarded the opportunity well, gives you a different feeling about approaching people that you may not know that well in the acquaintance category to start bringing them into your donor orbit or to be used as a referral. So that's a lot of what we're doing with these working papers is building confidence.
Yeah.
Because you're a good steward. But the letters of inquiry are the way to connect with people, because a lot of times people don't go, I'll just give you undesignated money. That's rare, frankly. But to say, I see the value of your underlying organization, but I really like that youth project or that specific training project, and you have a working paper. What is God telling me? What is God showing me, telling me to do about all that for the project itself? You're ready. You're prepared. And you've done what God has asked you to do to steward it as he opens up those doors. Before, and then we're going to move into, before I want to show you a couple of things too. Okay, let's see. You've got your working papers. Let's see. Now here's another version of what I just showed you, just to kind of show you. Is that it? No. Yeah. Stop sharing that. I'm not going to give that other thing. And here, just a quick thing. You probably have seen this. This is a summary of, and this comes from Street Psalms. I got this week, though. Let me just pull it out. They did a good job with this. So what Nick and Chris have done with this, I'm assuming you've seen this, Mario. It's good. Well done. Is if you notice what he's done here, this is Street Psalms. This is his little letter. He's doing an annual report, but an annual report is another way to get a abbreviated working paper in front of potential donors and current donors, okay? And you notice he said, this is what is God showing me? And I'm assuming Nick wrote a lot of this, so it has numbers and percentages, which especially Western donors like. What's the need? Has that kind of that Chris Rock, honestly, I'm surprised, blah, 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 blah. So he sets the need. Notice how the use of, he's setting basically there's a problem, okay? And then talks about kind of their track record, does it in the Chris Rock sort of way. Now here, he's really appealing to people like the Lilly Foundation and probably mostly Western donors. And you notice how the use of numbers, okay? Numbers are critical to create context for Western donors who want to feel like they're giving to somebody significant. And we're going to talk about your working paper needs some more numbers without being manipulative, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about that. And so he basically gives kind of a statement here. And in a pretty short amount of time, it allows somebody who's numbers oriented to know what is the income, what is the expenses, what is he using that for, and what is what's happened. So it's very short. It really doesn't tell the story. It does a little bit. He's done a good personal job of just, talking about his feeling of what is God telling me, what is God showing me, what is God telling me to do about it, does flow from here, although it's very North American based because that's what he's writing to. But he's basically done the same formula, but in an annual report format in a summary way. That makes sense. So let's go to, I'm going to start with Mario, because you actually use the format better than anybody else has. Bright, you did some good stuff in there, but the format is a little, you've got it scattered a little bit. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So great, great start. You've done, you've set it up. So again, you've got a great mission statement because you say it is to equip and mobilize urban leaders and organizations to love and serve the community, to seek their. So this is really your purpose statement. Nothing wrong with that. A full mission statement would have the purpose statement and primary means. You don't have to have that, frankly. But this is your purpose statement. You could say, and we do this by getting down here to go into, we do this by networking, formation, projects and initiatives, which can't just say that. You could do that for a full mission statement, but I'm not, this is great. You've stated your purpose and it's very clear, okay? Then you've gone into a little bit about what you've done, which is great. You strengthen, you work alongside, and you collaborate. In some ways, that is your mission statement. If you put it all together, I wouldn't change any of that. And so, that is your mission statement. We do this by, that. For 3 questions, what is God showing you? Again, you move into that well. You start off with the positive, which is great. And then you say, it's been blessed. But it has these issues. Well said. I like the way you've used your numbers here. Okay, that helps people get a sense of the context. Well done. What is God telling you to do about it? We see these poverties. Sometimes it helps. And so what's happened here is you do have a need stated down here. So what ends up happening, okay, but in most cases they work in isolation, even. So what ends up happening a little bit is you're restating the need here, and it would have been perhaps a little helpful to put another bullet up here that talks about not just inequality, but also lack of collaboration or lack of unity. So what's happening is you're kind of gathering, you're building, this is the opportunity, we're great stuff, but this is a need, and this is a need, and this is a need, so that when you get here, it's clean. And this is just kind of making sure the reader has that logic. Putting a bold statement, moving this up a little bit about lack of unity. And so that way it's easy for somebody to read and bold it. Again, opportunity. Let's see. So you can come back and almost say, sees the lack of unity or lack of coordination as a great opportunity. So what you do is you connect this back to your heading up here, and it helps them to keep, so need and then vision is all in kind of one place. So then how will you know this? Fantastic. I would flesh this out more for your working paper. I'm not getting the full excitement of the outcome you're stating the outcomes well, but it needs a little more emotion in it. It needs a little bit more of your excitement. So it does. Stronger leaders that work together to create healthy environment where people experience, that's wow. Okay. What else would you say about that? How else would you express it? Because here, yes, it is outcomes, but it's more visionary outcomes, and taking out another, putting in another paragraph, stating something from your heart. It helps. And I guess, for lack of a better term, the need, the vision, and then your heart commitment to seeing these visionary outcomes that happen is partly how people are getting to know you in the document, and also getting to know you in when you're sharing this in elevators, the elevator speeches, because you're going to be using this over and over again. So let me just stop at this point. If you were going to flesh this out with your passion, your heart, your emotion, something that would really kind of close the deal. Okay, somebody reading this, they're going, wow, that's a need, and this guy's got a vision. He's committed. How else would you word this section? Go ahead and turn on your mic. Go ahead and turn on your mic.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, actually, there are more things happening as outcomes. The way we measure the outcome is, well, first of all, people coming together. We're creating community where there was isolation and rivalry and competition. What we see emerging is it's a group of people that now share values, share perspectives, and trust has grown among them, and they're just enjoying being a community in mission. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing happening is that now people are also sharing the resources. They're learning from each other, which was not happening before. I'm just facilitating the connections, setting the table for them to come together. And what happens as a result of that is that, they grow in trust, they become a community. And then the next thing you see happening is that they're kind of working together and sharing resources. They're learning from each other. They're encouraging and supporting each other. And that's the first thing. As a result of their sharing, more people are experiencing the gospel in words and deed, and coming to know Christ and following Christ. You could say that one way to measure that is you see more people joining the church. The other thing that is happening is that the communities are being directly impacted in very specific ways as churches, or God's people, you could say, are being equipped and mobilized to serve to the needs of their communities. And they're doing that through feeding programs, after school programs.
We're getting, at that point, we're getting a little past the vision into the strategy, which is the next section.
Okay.
So but nothing wrong with that. It's just that's in the next section. So what this is trying to do is, and I'll just have Bright or Francis respond to this. This helped. You know, it's your passion. You just kind of started rattling that stuff off. It's in your head and assumed. That's easy. You didn't take any time at all to have to do that, right? That's just what you do. But it needs to be in writing and it needs to be out there. So all we did is got what's inside that is assumed, and it's so clear to you, it's almost like you don't need to communicate it because, but you're in the trees. We need to get communicated to the forest. But taking those and fleshing what you just said out a little bit, kind of that that excitement at a visionary, not quite yet into the projects. That'll come later. But exactly what you did, what you just said, but putting a little more paragraphs in.
Mhm, mhm.
And then what'll happen is you'll go back to that. You'll use that language when you're doing grant requests. You'll use that language on your websites. It's that visionary language that comes from your passion and just you're excited. What will be different? It's the vision of what's going to be different. So up here, this is more of what is God telling me to do about it? That's the vision of what you're addressing. This is kind of the vision of when I do that, what's going to be different? And notice if I'm a donor that doesn't know you, you've captured me with the need. Wow, that's
Mhm.
love. Inequality. Whoa, lack of unity. That makes sense. There's wasted resources. People are working, but they're not connecting. And then you're saying, but we are there to deal with that inequality. We are there to help that lack of unity that's happening. And if we do it, this just is happening. So you're bringing me along to come alongside and put my face right beside your face and look at the need, look at the vision, and look at the excitement of the outcomes at a visionary level if they're accomplished. You can see why that helps me then to go, okay, so what is it that you're going to do to accomplish this strategy, and how much is it going to cost? But if you don't do that, if you get into here's my track record and here's my strategy, here's my money, they haven't joined you. And it's that need, vision, and then the visionary outcome. And you've got it. You've got some really exciting things here that you've said, just to flesh it out. And then you'll use that over and over again. Here, this is probably needs some more work here. It is your ideas, your strategy, which is nothing wrong with that. We move from strategy pretty fast into tactics. And I don't know that I got fully the logic. I mean, I get this. And part of it is you are a compact writer. Nothing wrong with that. And you write well and you write clear. This is, and so somewhat what is happening is this is the statement. It's a great statement. It's well put together. But I'm trying to figure out how do I, and this is your example. So what you did is use tactics as an examples. I'm trying to figure out how in you stating the network. So this is what's happening. They're serious about it. It may just be about writing one more sentence there or something fleshing that out because this is so much in this sentence. People can miss the impact of it. It's a good sentence. So what's happening is somehow you are identifying who's serious about seeking transformation. That may stop, in that sentence. We do that by this, this, and this. Once we identify them, then we bring them together in a way that they have ownership, identity. There's more stuff in what you're saying in that sentence that needs to be fleshed out. So you might break it into, we identify them, and this is how we see them. We bring them together, and in bringing them together, these things are the what is happening. And as an example, here's how we do it. But what's exciting is this sentence fleshed out a little bit more. This is helpful because it helps us to understand that. It just gives us the examples, but it's fleshing this out a little bit more would give us a little bit more of a excitement for the strategy. Does that make sense? Again, you've been saying this so long. It's just trying to get out of what you assume because you are a compact writer. Here it is. Okay, so you've got, this is telling me your tactics, but I'm not yet sure. Okay, formation opportunities. Probably that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more too. This is a tactic. It's a project. But you might before that say formation, 2 or 3 sentences about what formation is. Then you get into the project. Then you get into the different areas of that project. So it's just backing up a little bit and showing the strategy of formation. And there's some excitement in that. And then now we get to the project, and now we get to the parts of the project. Okay. This is, this project initiative is your catch-all. And it may be here that you might just have, let's see. This is pretty clear. Yeah. And you do move quickly from the project into the examples, which is clear. And then I guess the only thing else I would suggest adding is when you put your budget together, and I know you haven't asked that yet, you haven't put that together, is to, this goes into your background. And what's there is you've got these numbers that are very helpful. But the problem is they need to be moved up somehow. This gets into a little bit of, you start losing people here just a bit. So it might be thinking, taking somewhere before you get into the narrative of it is to kind of use a Nick chart where you have this many people impacted, this many people. And I'm sorry that the Western mindset is we got to have numbers to feel significant about our giving. That's just the Western mindset. And so you could put a chart up here that just basically states how many people have been served, what have been done, and I know that can feel manipulative. And if that feels like in any way at all, it's violating, it's David counting the census, don't do it, okay? But it is something that helps people understand up to here. I don't really know the context of what you've done. Okay, now, whoa, now I get some stuff. I'm getting here 25 communities, but I haven't seen that yet. So we talked about you putting together a map that would talk about where you are, what communities you are, and you could even attach numbers to that map. But something that in a quick way would give a track record of numbers, location, and what you're doing. So in a very fast way, somebody gets the context of the scale of what you're doing. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then on your budget, if you notice how Lillian put it in a table, how Revelito put it in a table, sometimes that helps to have a budget in a table format like that. And I will, yeah, we'll go into a little more detail on some budgets. I'll give you some examples of that. And part of what you're doing is you wanted to make sure the budget is your cash budget. This is what, I get from fees, if you have fees, donations. Here's my expenses. Here's what I need from cash. But underneath that, there's another category. What do I get in volunteered services that I don't have to pay for? What do I get in gifts in kinds? And then the bottom line after that is, that's the number of how much money it takes to run your organization. So let's say you approach Cornerstone Trust and they say we can only give 10% of somebody's overall budget. Well, you want to make that budget the true budget. And so by having, these are my fees and my donations, these are my expenses, this is the bottom line of the cash I need from donations, okay? But below that, I also have gifts in kind, volunteered services. That bottom line number is my true budget. This is what it takes to run this organization. That's the number you give to Cornerstone, and Cornerstone goes, okay, I can do 10% of that, not 10% of your cash budget. That gives you a little, and that's the true statement. How much money does it take to run this organization? Gifts in kind, volunteered services, seconded people, that is included. But you don't want to put that in your cash because that's not cash, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that would be a budget that you might put here. Then the next step is to start thinking about your projects. What projects would be divided up? And so of course you've got them right here. Do you have, so you've done all this, the budget, the overall budget would include everything. But at some point, then you're going to start your book of letters of inquiry. So you're ready. So if somebody says, well, tell me just about health education and disease prevention, whop, this is what God is showing me. This is what God's telling me to do about it. This is what would be the outcomes. It doesn't have to be as long as your main working paper. Here's the budget, including 15% overhead to the whole organization. And, and this is what we do. So that to some degree, all of these will have a miniature working paper, similar to what you saw with Lillian, that is ready with a budget that you can break it out. I know this seems like a lot of work. However, having that in your back pocket, man, that helps you when you're talking to donors or when you're approaching, and just having it, because a lot of your work is now, after you do this, is starting discovery, potential grant requests, major donors. That's where a lot of your work is. And to know you have this, back in your back pocket, well done, edited, approved by your board, approved by people. It just gives you that ability to focus on getting new donors and being ready to talk to them by voice or by word as you're discovering them. So let me stop at that point. Does that make sense? Confusing? What would you add?
Makes sense. Yeah. It's a work in the project. So it's a project in the working. Yeah, we'll revisit it and see the samples you provided today, and yeah, and keep improving it. So it all makes sense.
So Mario, you're a little bit unique. You're understated. Has anybody ever told you that before?
No.
So you deliver more than you promise. And nothing wrong with that. And so, but that's a great gift. It's probably part of your wiring, and it's probably another thing that makes you frustrated with people that overstate, which is a lot of fundraisers. Okay. And that's probably frustrating. With that gift, you also want to be a little careful. If I'm coaching you to overstate, get too dramatic, you might go, okay, Brad, you're doing that. You're different than I am. I really do like to be understated, but I do recognize I need to do it in a way that shows my commitment, my passion for commitment, because a donor, somebody that's a bigger schmoozer than you might make the first connection with a donor, but you're the one that's going to be really developing trust by your commitment to get things done and not just talk about it. Now, and I don't know you that well, but just from a little bit I've seen and how you write, nothing wrong with that. I think that's a gift of God, and don't fight it. Don't change your fundraising strategy to be somebody different than you are. But recognize that people want to see that deep-seated commitment and passion you have inside. Doesn't mean you have to be dramatic or schmoozer and, do all the stuff that you've seen everybody do that is just really frustrating and horrible. But we need to see more of that passion out, but in your way.
Yeah, and I believe when you are actually presenting, this is helping me to really organize my presentation, because I think when I'm explaining the context, the need, and what we're doing, what we see God doing through us as a result of our work, and why we chose to focus the way we've done it, I see people responding. So maybe in writing, I really understate what's really is going on and it could happen if we get the support to continue. So
That
thank
makes
you for the
sense.
observation.
That's very cultural. So DR is an oral culture. Those
Yeah.
funding people in Grand Rapids and other places are written cultures. If you get them face to face, you got them. They're like, wow, this is great.
Mhm.
But you got to have
Mhm.
writing to get face to face, and so that's the point. It's crossing cultures.
Yes.
But if they just come visit
Yes.
you and let you show them around, wow, how do you get the writing to them, the paper to them, so they would do that?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, Bright, do you have any advice toward Mario before we jump into any things you've seen as you watch that? Any insight or encouragement for your brother?
Yeah, so I was watching very carefully, but I didn't have enough information from the documentation yet. As you said, you are going to share it. That's what I'm thinking, that this is going to be a group work that we'll be doing together. We'll be sharing to see how we can help each other write up correctly, and even help ourselves in our presentations to see how we can move forward. But in the meantime, I think it's something we can work with. And the passion is very much important, like you said, because if you are sitting somewhere, if you don't open your mouth, nobody knows that you have a PhD or you have a GED or anything, because all human beings look the same. So for somebody to talk to you, it is communication that is going to make it work. So we will work on that one. And I think both of us need to work on that.
that's why that's why we have these conversations. So,
Yes.
and eventually, pretty soon, you will actually bring that working paper to a potential donor or an acquaintance and say, you know what, at some point, I'd like to raise money from you, but that's not what I'm doing today. Would you come alongside as a potential donor and just come on my side of the table, not on the other side of the table? And this is what I'm going to be presenting eventually to you, but to other people. Critique it. What's not clear? And I'm going to just literally give you the writing, okay? Because I know sometimes and then could you read it and not me? I'm not going to talk. You read it, and then could you tell me what's not clear? And I'm going to be writing down what is not clear. I'm going to be looking at your questions, and that'll help me to write it better, anticipating people's questions. What's happened is you've been honest. Sometimes I like to raise money from you, but today I'm literally asking you to look at my paper and say what was not clear, what was confusing, and I'm going to just be quiet as you do that. I'm sitting across the table, and then after you read it, as if we were not sitting across the table or not in a Zoom room. You could do this with a Zoom room. What was not clear? What questions? What did you like? What did you not like? But especially what was not clear. What happens with that is now a potential donor is you included me in your problem. And you did say you're going to raise money, you're honest, but you're also saying not today. You're asking me to really come inside and understand it. You're also engaging them, and they're going, well, what do you do here? Well, okay, I didn't understand that. You could say that, and it's helping you to get that paper better and better and better. Be honest with you, when your paper's better, your verbal is better too over a period of time, because it creates a discipline of understanding need, vision, outcomes, rather than just talking about track record, which everybody goes to way too fast with a new donor or new acquaintance. So let's look at yours, right? Good work. You've got, and frankly, I'll be honest with you, your job is a little bit easier than Mario's, because you're at school. People know what schools are, what a network is, and does that make sense? I know that doesn't feel like it's easier, but it's just you're more concrete. Oh, I'm a school. All right, we know what you do. This is great. Your overview is fantastic. You really have, in your overview, have done a great job. You state what you are, in particular, where your context is. It specializes in English, training people, which is the principle. I mean, you have stated a lot in there. You've created a really robust file cabinet for the rest of the whole document, by the way you stated this. And in this, you've stated why you do it, what you do, all of it. One of the best file cabinet openers that I've seen, or file folder openers. And what we do with this is a file folder helps the listener or the reader to kind of go, okay, I'm going to hear about this school, where it's located, what the need is, English speaking, or because you need to do that to engage the rest of the world. And it kind of lets them just rest and go, in a short amount of time, I have a file folder to put all the information that I'm about to get from either reading this or listening to Brian. So here, and sometimes you wouldn't do this, but what you've done here is you've stated the need. It's the question is, what is God showing me, by giving a little bit of introduction to yourself. What's good is you didn't go into your track record. You stated, what is God showing me? You stated the need through a personal story. Okay. Again, this word here is a confusing word, but you've defined it. But there's something I know that as I read down the document, exclusion is a huge word for you, and it's a huge word for the school. Sometimes it might be helped to bullet this, because not everybody's going to realize that is that important. So what you might want to do is just put a little bullet that says the need for social inclusion, bold, and then the paragraph, the need for social inclusion, or something that lets people know we're about to go into a key need that drives all of this, that is about exclusion and exclusion. It just warns the reader you're about to really hear something this word is important. Otherwise, I could get all the way down here and not realize, oh, inclusive, exclusive, because I'm not wired that way. But that I don't understand the need the way you understand the need. So a little bullet there. And you've stated it. This is crucial. Okay. Crucial. So again, all this is good. You're stating the need. What is God showing me? Inclusive education, and you might, I don't know. You've said this a lot. You might underline it or something, or maybe not.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but it's all through here. And so that's why, and it might make sense. I don't want to get into definitions at this point. You're stating needs. But I think you've done a pretty good job of talking about what inclusive education is, but recognize most people reading this will not have the clarity of the need as you do. So engagement, all gone, all this is good. So, this is great. This kind of is your bottom line, all right? That probably should be bolded or something so that people kind of go, okay, whoa, 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 whoa. This is a transition sentence from what is God showing me to what is God telling me to do about it. The transition sentence could go down here or here. It's in the same basic area. This is what is God telling me to do about it. This transition sentence could be here. Maybe that's a better place for it, but it's in the same area. But and maybe if it was here, it would stand out more, because that now lets me go, okay, he's moved from what is God showing me to what is God telling me to do about it, which is, in God's calling for GSM is fine way to say that. There's not a problem with that. Okay, so here is a problem here. You've moved from the need of the organization to the need of the community to the need of the organization. This is track record. So, and again, it's confusing when you shift from need to vision, okay? One way to do this maybe is to go ahead and move it up here and somehow put a bullet that's a bold to say, go ahead and keep this in the need, but you might restate it down here later and somehow say something about part of the need is, so this is the need of society, okay? We are addressed to make that need. However, we've had our own needs, okay? And so something that says, however, in the process of doing this, we have faced needs. So now you're keeping it up in what is God showing me? Because this creates a little bit of a logic problem. I'm just trying to figure out where it goes. You know what? I think I would keep it clean and say, this is the need of society. Don't bring this in yet.
Yeah.
Bring this down here. And what you're trying to do, because this is actually restating it. And to just slide in a little bit of numbers is not bad, frankly, even though that's kind of out of place. If you put this sentence here, and then you put, did not use this sentence, that'll come later. Use something about this sentence here and slide in a little bit of numbers, nothing wrong with that. This is good. It's just trying to, what's happening is things are kind of jumbled. And then the other thing that's happening is this is confusing to me when you are listing things by your programs and not by your strategy. So what ends up happening is here, this is your strategy, is you have a strategy to deal with people from age 13 to 20, but you didn't list that. You listed that as this program. And what people want to know is your strategy. So the strategy might be something like access, let's see, you might want to even, because you have a sequence of addressing people that English language that are deprived children that are ages 13 to 20. with the assumption some go to school, some high school, some are not. Then you have high school graduates. Then you have an alternative high school diploma. And so what I was trying to figure out is these are your strategies. That should be your headlines. You know, you're not hiding this, but you don't want to headline a for the donors don't understand the importance of the USA Embassy. They do understand the importance of your strategy. And then once you're talking about your strategy, obviously you would include that in there. So I'm not sure exactly how to rearrange this, but kind of you have a strategy for younger people, you have a strategy for an alternative high school diploma, you have a strategy for baccalaureate, and it looks like you even have a strategy for a graduate school. That makes sense logically that would flow together. Okay.
Okay.
But the one thing that's missing though is we move very quickly from what's the need, which you've done a great job of stating, to what's the vision. We kind of didn't get into that visionary outcome. If this happens, there's going to be people engaging business. There's going to be people engaging all of the continent of Africa. They're going to be able to open up doors to all of global. That's not here. And so somewhere you want to say the vision, what is God telling me to do about it? And you can call that call in. What would be the outcome at a visionary level? It's going to change these people's lives. It's going to change the way Cote d'Ivoire is able to have key leaders that are transitioning between French economies and English economies. It's going to give people opportunity to connect in a lifetime of inclusion. That's not here. And we need that before we get into your strategy. So you move to strategy without that, and may have lost a donor because of that, because they're kind of like they haven't heard that passion yet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. But again, every single one of us does exactly what you do. We're in the trees. We articulate what's exciting to us through the window because you see your work through the partnerships. Nothing wrong with it. That's your job. But we're trying to engage a donor. It has to see the work through these visionary outcomes and the strategy. Then you introduce them from strategy into the partnerships. That makes sense. So here, okay, this is good. But this is outcome that's coming after, well, see, to some degree, this should go up higher. This is kind of the, what is God showing me? What is God telling, what would happen if I did it? You have a lot of the visionary outcomes here, and the use of numbers is good. And then you get into your more statements. I guess if we could try to go back and just think about the logic of how a acquaintance or a new donor, what's the need? You've done that great. What's the vision? Okay, and then what is the visionary outcomes? Then jump into your strategy and restate the strategy, not by partnerships, but by strategy points.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I will rephrase I did something again. I sent it to you, but I think that the first time that we met, we said something so that I reframe it in a way.
I'm not giving, this is not the latest version. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you will look at it again, but I have taken the points correctly today as well.
Okay.
So I will reframe it and see. We'll work on it together until it gets better.
I'm sorry that I used the wrong one. So
No, don't worry. I just sent it to you because when I realized I did not send that one to you before, I just sent that, okay, after class, you might read it and see whether the things we discussed. So I'm just going to compare these things again with what I have and then make the changes as it's supposed to be. But you also look at the one I sent to you. That's it.
What I'm going to do with the two of you, because you guys have been pretty faithful on this, I'd like to ask Rob Martin, see if he's got some time to engage us. He lives in, and because you guys are at the level that I think Rob is fun. Wrote the book. He's seen more Christian fundraising grant requests than anybody else alive. He's a little cranky in a kind of a fun way, but yours at the level that I would like to do that. So if possible, what is for you to redo this and don't, you've got priorities. what is a timetable that you said, maybe I could have it done by this time? And then given that, I can engage Rob on what's the time he can come in to talk to us. And I really just do with the two of y'all because I need everybody else to kind of get up there. They're not there yet. Dang is the other student who's been out traveling, and I'm working with him to kind of get him caught up as well. The rest are auditors. So timing wise, when would you be able to kind of take a look at some of the things we talked about today, have it ready for me to send to Rob and see if he's open?
Okay. Okay. In my case, I think I normally have the time from Sunday to Tuesday. So I'll work on it these 3 days. By Tuesday evening, I'll send it back to you.
Okay. How about for you, Mario?
Yeah, I think I can rework it during this week, and by Wednesday, maybe submit it to you back so you can look at it and be ready for any appointment.
So Rob is in Michigan. He's in Ann Arbor, not Grand Rapids. So timing wise, if we did it at this time, it's 7 a.m. for him. Bri, how long are you going to be in the United States?
I'm here until somewhere 20th of September.
Okay. So he might say, I don't want to get up at 7. I would like to do it at 8. Okay. If we aim for this next Thursday, would I have the flexibility to do it 1 hour later if that's what he says?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him right now, send him a note and saying, hey, I've got 2 star students that are amazing. Would you mind? We've already been working on their paper. And of course, he tears it. He has an eye that I don't have, and he'll just tear it apart in all kinds of ways. He may ask questions. What's interesting, though, he's asking questions the way a foundation leader could ask. And it can be frustrating because he's going to go, well, what about this? And you'll go, that's obvious down here, but you're listening going, okay, I should have put it up here. And he's global, my goodness, he's really well connected. But just even when he asks stuff that to you is obvious, he's asking it from the perspective of what a potential grant person would ask. And so you're really listening to what's not clear. So he's kind of like another guy to stand alongside, but you guys have got good proposals. And I think he would be helpful. So let me see if I can get his time to do that. And
okay.
He volunteered to do that, but he's good at it. So I'll ask him for next Thursday, either at this time or 1 hour later.
Yeah. So we'll add the budget and everything, right? So that to be the full paper. Okay, that's fine.
So I'm going to send you Revelino's and Lillian's. Okay. And you don't have to. Revelino puts, he wants to make sure it's teal and Caribbean. Okay. You don't have to do all that. Okay. He's a marketing writer, and you don't have to get it as fancy as Revelino's. But you need to kind of aim it more toward having that budget ready so that the full proposal.
And the proposal is always connected to a specific project, right? Because you have all the working paper statements, vision, what that's showing you, and then this is how we're responding to these needs in this particular area, and we're applying for, a grant for this project for that amount of money. So
what happens is you have that working. So the working paper is the big thing, but you have miniature working papers. He calls it a book of LOIs, letters of inquiry. And you saw, and I'll show you how Lillian did that. You have those, but you really don't want to ever present a project without validating your organization. So the big working paper, because otherwise because you need money for the organization, otherwise the project doesn't work. But a lot of times donors are engaging the project, but they're excited about the overhead because they understand the project is exciting, but you've been really clear about the overhead and why your underlying foundational organization is important. And so it's a little easier for Bright because he's a university. And so if he says, this is my program for kids that are 13 to 20 that are never going to go to college, okay, they're going, that's okay, because you're a university, and we know you have to have money for university. So if you take 15% for your university, we know that you're universities. Universities take money to run, and that out of the outflow of the university, you do this non-university project. That logic is really clear. People go, okay, 15% to your overhead, sure. You're in a little different situation. A network, what is a network? And so that's why that working paper is so important, that you never present a specific community project without saying, this is the organization that is behind it.
Mhm. Yeah, in our case, the way we actually run projects, because that's how we've raised money for training events for leaders and gatherings and things like that. But also the third component is that we have initiatives that are implemented by these leaders and organizations that we train. So when we apply for money, they are the ones implementing, and we are just kind of managing the grant and making sure they do what we have agreed to. That will be done, like in youth mentorship programs, for example. If you saw my letter of inquiry, it is for that specific area. Asking money for a mentoring program that will be implemented by several organizations in our network together, like as a joint initiative. So,
and you were clear in that letter of inquiry that they're giving the money to you. You're responsible for the reporting of it. You're responsible for making sure it happens. You are taking, and it wasn't quite clear, but you're going to have to take some money, more than 15%, because 15% for the overhead for the organization, but also some staff time for you to manage the project. There's nothing wrong with that. You're the one that's taking the authority, the responsibility, and the accountability for it. But you've been also clear, we're then pushing money also to the people that are on the front lines doing the work. But it's really a grant to you, and they're excited that you're equipping your partners to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's so Leadership Foundation are known for this. Because the government doesn't want to give out 50 grants, little grants. They want to give out one gigantic grant to one person that'll take all the effort to do all the reporting and be responsible. And the reporting to government grants is gigantic. And so LF would take a huge cut of that, but the government didn't care because they knew they were going to have a broker, for lack of a better term, that would then send it out to various LF cities, but they just wanted to make sure that those reports were filed. And they're very happy to pay that much overhead to make sure the reports are filed. And a lot of times foundations are very happy to do that. So, but it was clear.
Yeah.
You don't have to apologize for taking overhead. You're doing good work. Yeah, and brokers take money. Brokers are valuable. But you're in a different place. Bright can just say, I'm a university. People go, okay, I got that. You're a network, and that's the part of the challenge, but the fun of it.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? So if you get those by Tuesday night, I'll confirm and see if Rob can do it. If he can't, then he can't. But I would love for him to meet you. I just would.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I would enjoy that. So I think he would enjoy it. He's in retirement. He has some eye issues that he may say, I just can't right now. But he may say, yeah, I'm bored. Would love to do that. So that's what my hope is. He's really,
so when are you sharing the other document? Are you sharing immediately?
So what I would do is ask him if he's free next Thursday, and that you would have your papers ready by Tuesday night, so he could spend Wednesday looking at them. That's what I'm promising him, if he could be ready by Thursday. And would he do it at 7 a.m. his time or 8 a.m. his time is my question. He may be traveling, I don't know, but he's retired, so he may say, buddy, I'm retired, I don't want to do that anymore. But he's really generous, and he really does this well. He's just a good man, really amazing man. So anyway, I will try that. But you guys are ready for him.
And now
everybody's ready for Rob.
Even having him as a lecturer, you show people sometimes the discussion in your consultations. It will be something to add to your pedigree. Yes. That is, Ron Martin is teaching you something, coaching you on something.
Absolutely.
I think that would be a very good one. If we get him, it'll be fine.
We will. I'll work on that. Let me see what we got. But your papers and your projects and your hard work, you're ready for Rob. Okay, not everybody is, and it's fun. It's fun to. He enjoys people that have really worked hard. So
yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Bright, would you mind closing us in prayer?
All right. Let's pray. Joe, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn and to be able to have everything that will be tools in our toolbox to work in your backyard. We thank you for the life of Dr. Brad and then Mario and all our other friends that are hooked on across the oceans to be able to learn and then get more knowledge to do our work correctly. Now that we are going, just give us the understanding, the wisdom that we need to put into this work. Give us strength as well to be able to make sure that these things are done as you have ordered us to do. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
And well, thank you for your time this morning, and
Mhm.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye, everybody.